Hey everybody, how's it going? Cubale to all the people out there, to toda la gente. This is Nuestra Palabra. Latino writers have their say. I'm your guest host, Rodrigo Bravo Jr. I'm filling in for Tony Díaz, el libro traficante, and author of the book, The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. And even though Tony may not be here, ya sabes que le damos esquina al libro traficante and continue talking about cultivating cultural community capital. We, of course, want to thank all of our listeners. And you might be listening right now, first via our live stream, where we broadcast to various social media platforms like YouTube or Facebook, even Twitter now. This video, though, also appears on fox26houston.com. We appreciate our allies there who promote our work. And then the audio version, our first platform, 90.1 KPFT, that's our first platform. And of course, I have to pause there because I want to remind our listeners that we hope that you can budget a donation to KPFT in the name of Nuestra Palabra. Latino writers have their say, so that we can do our part to keep this great experiment in freedom of speech going. We want to make sure that we can always put together shows like this, our terms on our terms. Of course, we're also high-tech Aztecs, or in my case, Wi-Fi chichimecas. So there's also a version that will appear on your favorite podcast streaming platform. We give love to all the indigenous groups, y'all. Okay, that's what we do here. Like Spotify, Apple, Google. You can also find us, all our past episodes there as well. Folks, Juneteenth is coming up, and we have two community superstars who want to make sure literacy is part of the celebration by making sure our people have a choice in both the books they read and where and who they purchase from. I want to welcome two book barons who are changing lives one page at a time. At a moment in time when our books are being marginalized, discouraged, and even banned, it's crucial that we support these book traffickers to ensure we continue our self-determination in our education. And just like Tony says, our terms on our terms. I want to go ahead and welcome our guests on the show right now, David and Dara Landry from Class Bookstore, as well as Jesus Cosme, King Abel. How y'all doing today?
Doing great. How you doing?
Good. Happy to be here.
Peace.
I am so happy that you're here as well. We've met each other in different areas, but man, when Tony and I met both of y'all, we both knew, man, this is something special. We got to get them on the show because literacy is so important, especially right now. Like I mentioned before, books are being marginalized and they're even being banned. And who are the ones that are being targeted? It's BIPOC folks, it's Black authors, it's trans authors, queer authors, people of color. Our books, the histories that we write, the education that we want to provide for our people is being shunned. And we know what's at play here. But before we get to all that and get all, whatnot, let's talk about the good stuff. All right. Let's talk about the stories that we have here. All right. And first, I want to go ahead and introduce David and Dara and talk about Class Bookstore and the journey that they're going through. I'm going to go ahead and read their bio, and then they'll tell us a little bit more. Class Bookstore is where knowledge meets fashion and community is born. Class was founded by two book lovers, David and Dara Landry, who both sought to bring together their love for reading and fashion while filling a void in their community as a Black-owned bookstore. Believing that the acquisition of knowledge can transform generations, they set out on a journey to not just build a bookstore, but to create a culture for people who love discovery. Oh my God, I love that already. I mean, come on. In their pursuit to find out how to bring this to fruition, they were able to gather the elements of what they believe it takes to foster the creation of Class Bookstore. Consistency, credibility, collaboration, and creativity. First off, again, we met just recently at the BIPOC Book Festival, which is a great celebration of BIPOC authors. Some fantastic people that are running that festival. And when we met, I saw your display. I saw the books that you had on display, and it was so beautiful because I said, man, I love it when people are promoting cultura and when they're promoting culture.
Yeah.
I just read a little bit of the history of your bio. Tell us a little bit more. How did this idea come about? You in your bio, you said right there that consistency, credibility, collaboration, and creativity. Tell us a little bit more about that and why it's so important for y'all.
So I'll just kind of bring it in. Okay. 2015, we read an article on the internet about the fall of the Black-owned bookstore in America. And at that time, there was a little bit of a chaotic thing going on. 39 Black-owned bookstores in the entire United States, and that number was declining. And I remember Dara turning to me and saying, "Yo, we got to do something about it." And I agreed. And we started traveling. You know, my wife and I, we always love to travel, go different places. And, you know, one of the first places we went to was LA. And shouts out to Iso Wan, one of our mentors that we look to in this book selling industry. They really dropped a lot of wisdom on us.
Yeah, agreed. And even to take it back just a little further, we have always just been lovers of books independently. When we actually met in a bookstore. David was working at a bookstore. And so bookstores have just been part of our story from the beginning. And so we've always been lovers of books and reading and things like that. And so in 2015, once we started traveling and set out, from there to 2020, we were trying to kind of map out a plan and figure out, could we do this? And in February 2020, we were like, we're opening a bookstore. There is nothing that's going to stop us from opening a bookstore. And then March 2020 happened. And the week we started our small business program, we went into lockdown. And we were like, okay, when we could have gotten discouraged, we decided that we were starting our bookstore. And in November 2020, we modified our plan and opened our bookstore online and mobile. We delivered to homes and we just figured it out. But we opened that bookstore in 2020 and we've been rocking and rolling ever since. Yeah. And we're fortunate enough to get a brick and mortar, a physical location, December 2022. Yeah.
That is amazing. First of all, finding love at the bookstore. Okay, come on. Oh my God.
But I read a book. You know, my friend and I had just graduated from college and we were trying to figure out, we wanted boyfriends. And we read a book that was like a great place to meet guys. It's a bookstore. Shout out. I need to find that book. I think I still have it. But it was the best advice I ever got.
I love that. What a beautiful origin story there for y'all. And oh my God, the pandemic really did have an effect for you. There are so many businesses that we've spoken to that have been affected by the pandemic. And the fact that y'all were able to say, you know, take the courage and say, you know what, we're not going to let this stop us. We're going to figure it out. That just goes to show the resiliency that folks, you know, that we have, you know, say that Black and brown people, we have to have that resiliency. We can't just give up and just say like, well, we'll just wait, because we don't have that generational wealth. We don't have that resources sometimes, right? We got to keep going, keep grinding, keep going. And so it's so beautiful to see that and for y'all to go ahead and make that happen. Now, I know that y'all just opened up a brick and mortar location, correct?
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that transition from what y'all were doing to a brick and mortar, because that's a big step. And not only that, it can be intimidating. It can be intimidating going from something that's maybe a little bit more flexible and you can go here and this and that to saying like, hey, we're going to put our roots right here and try to build out from there. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
I'll give it a go. So we knew we wanted to have a brick and mortar shop. The problem was the location and the money. Having that seed money to really get started and plant, as you said, your roots somewhere. And we were really trying to figure it out because, you know, my wife, she grew up in Missouri City. I grew up in Fifth Ward. Both of those neighborhoods have very close ties to our hearts. And so we wanted someplace, because, you know, growing up, you're like, man, I want to be able to go to a bookstore, be able to get up in the morning and go there and read and, you know, interact with the community. But the problem was we couldn't find spaces there. And if we did find a space, it wasn't the right price. So it was important for us to have that. But the transition, as you said, we still love meeting people. And so it was for us, it was imperative for us to be able to do these pop-ups, do these markets, because it allows us to quickly meet people. But one of the main questions all of them would ask is, where's your brick and mortar?
Yes. If only y'all had a brick and mortar. I mean, people were just, that was like the one thing that they just, I hated feeling like it, but it did feel like we needed a physical location to legitimize us. It's not true,
No.
but it did very much feel like people needed a physical place, an address or something to be able to take us seriously as a bookstore. And we were, I remember one weekend we were sitting at a friend's house and I was like, man, what are we gonna do to get this money? We gonna have to start. We gotta figure something out. Cause like you say, we don't have a father that we could borrow $1 million loan, you know, a modest $1 million loan from. And we all understand in our communities, you know, you get it out the mud. That's just how you figure it out. And we were approached by a friend randomly when we were doing something else. A friend of ours had space, and he was looking to use his space to kind of create money for a ministry that he was running. And so he was like, I have this space, it's not much, but if y'all want to use this as your bookstore and you want to, you know, make this, we were talking about doing a pop-up there, but he's like, how about y'all rent the space out for me? He's like, I just need this much. And it was a super reasonable price to be able to support a ministry that I'm running. And we were like, we would love to help you support this nonprofit, and we would absolutely love to have physical location. And so a 5-year plan got fast routed to a 2-year plan really quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. That's exactly the type of support that you want to see in the community. You know, folks helping folks out, because, like, you know, we've been really hammering through, right? Folks like ourselves, Black and Brown communities, often we have to find our own resources. And the fact that somebody else helped you and said, hey, I got a space here. What can we do with it? That is beautiful to hear. And that's really what it's all about. And that's another thing too. I wanted to touch on that and then go ahead and introduce our other guests as well, because it is something that Black and Brown folks and marginalized folks always face, finding legitimacy in spaces that really, you don't, like you said, I didn't really need a brick and mortar to legitimize myself. You know, I really didn't, but it felt like I did. And you know, and look, blessings to you that you have that, right? But you were already a bookstore before that. I understand that. We get that often from other folks as well. And it turns out that oftentimes Black and Brown folks like ourselves, we have to struggle with that because we're always dealing with that kind of imposter syndrome, or wondering, are we really, can we do this? Can we do this and that? But what a beautiful example that y'all are showing that, yes, you can do it. Perseverance, going through, and really just blessings on that. So we're going to continue talking with y'all as well. But I do want to introduce our next guest as well, that's going to be in conversation with us. That is Jesus Abel Cosme. He's a bookseller and owner of King Abel's here in San Antonio, Texas. And prior to selling books, Cosme sold handmade jewelry, accessories, and apparel under the name of Just Cos Designs. He designed King Abel around 2018, and it was then that he decided to change the direction he was going business-wise and started selling books. Since then, he's been advocating for literacy and history, primarily Latin and African American history. The majority of the books he sells revolve around that, culture and history. He sells books for all ages and anyone curious, interested enough to learn history outside of what's being taught in school. Kudos to that. The books he sells are for a minimum of $5 donation, but he's never going to deny anybody knowledge. You know what that means, but we're here to support King Abel. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. The goal, this is the last part, the goal is not to get rich from selling books, although profit is nice, but to strive primarily to promote literacy and educate as many people as possible. Want to welcome to the show Jesus A. Cosme, King Abel. All right. Jesus, I got, we just gave you your bio right now. Tell us a little bit more about you coming through with the idea, and especially because you made it a point of emphasis there in your bio that you had, hey, I got to change my business model. I want to aspire to do something a little bit bigger. Tell us a little bit about, before and then coming to that decision and what led to that decision. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So, as you mentioned, prior to being a bookseller, I was doing jewelry and accessories and whatnot. Then I got into shirt printing. printing T-shirts with my sister, and we were doing shirts here and there. Um, your common stuff. Little quotes or whatnot. Themes that were going on at the time. But in that thought, I was like, you know what? I want to make a character to, you know, do something different with. So I created King Abel in about around 2018 or so. Started doing shirts with little quotes, with him on it and stuff. Um, Bob Marley quotes, stuff like that. Revolutionary quotes and whatnot. But and then I was like, you know what? I want to take it a step further. So I started selling books along with my merch. Uh, Used books at first, and so yeah, I incorporated that and started getting more into book selling from then. And I've been selling books since about 2019, I want to say. And at first, I was selling them for half cover of the of the cover price, and then I decided I had seen or read an article about like a couple of business models that were selling their products for donations. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try that with my books, because I feel, people like to read, but sometimes they don't want to pay, full cover or even half, the cover price. So I figured if I give them the opportunity to name their price, with a minimum of $5, that they would, the likelihood of them purchasing the book and actually reading it would increase. And it actually worked. People started selling a lot more books. Um, Demand and whatnot started to increase. So I'm very pleased with that.
What a great story. Now, when I first met you, Jesus, we were actually, this was after one of the Latino books series, author series that we have at the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center in
Mhm.
San Antonio, Texas.
I
Tony
remember.
Díaz is the literary curator of the Latino bookstore at the Guadalupe. And we have a featured speaker every second Friday of the month. And we bring them in, we do a reading, poetry, talk about the books, and feature the author there at the bookstore. And we had a great session at that time. We left that session and we went to Jaime's place. And
Mhm.
so, for folks that are listening right now, whether on the podcast or on the FM broadcast, Jaime's place is on the west side of San Antonio, and it's a little get down. All right, that's what it is. They play cumbia music, they play oldies, all that good stuff, right? And they had a craft section there, and kind of a seller's market, if you will.
Mhm.
And Tony and I were talking about, man, wouldn't it be cool if somebody was selling books here? And we're like, nah, nobody can sell books. And there is Jesus. We turn around like 10 steps, and there's Jesus with his stand with everything there, King Abel on full display. And we said, oh my God, we rushed over there and oh my God, fell in love with what you're doing, Jesus. And really tell us about the King Abel character. Because look, I purchased some of your pins, I gave them out. People love them. They say, I love the character, especially the one that says the button
Yeah,
that says,
actually,
read me an MF book. It's like, there you go, there you go.
I don't know if you can see it,
Yeah, we can see it.
a little bookmark.
And I love it because it just speaks to our culture, right? Hey, give me a damn book. Léame un libro. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's beautiful. What
I
gave
mean,
you the inspiration to that?
um, actually, it's a song I heard. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It's a song I heard, and like I said, I was selling books at the time, and it just so happened I heard it, and like as I mentioned, I already had my character, and I wanted to incorporate that with the bookstore, and make him the face of the bookstore. So as I mentioned, I started making shirts with my character, uh, Malcolm X quotes, Martin Luther King quotes, Bob Marley quotes, just positive and like revolutionary quotes. Um, so I heard that song, read an MF book, and I was like, this is perfect. It just goes hand in hand with what I'm doing. So I kind of ran with it, uh, in my character. So.
No, that's fantastic, and we all know what. In fact, when this appears on the FM broadcast, we're gonna play that song, right? It's gonna be a great addition to the FM broadcast. But that's a great story, and what you're doing, especially in the city of San Antonio, it's definitely needed. I feel like there's a void there that needs to be filled, and so speaking especially from a Latino that's in the city that's majority Latino, I know that a lot of times some voices get lost in that, and I think, when it comes to like Afro Latinidad, when it comes to Black culture there in San Antonio, sometimes it gets a little lost in the whole midst of the Mexicanidad and the Tex-Mex and all that stuff. I know that when it comes to culture and books and whatnot, we often kind of forget that, hey, there's other places, because this applies to everybody. When we learn about other people's cultures, we really nourish our soul. We get to know other people as well. And I'm going to go ahead and add David and Dara to the conversation as well, because I think this is why it's so important that we highlight both of y'all, because the work that y'all are doing in the community right now is so critical, especially right now that our books are being targeted. I know right now we live in Texas, and you see what's going on with that. I'll go with Jesus first, and then we'll definitely maybe a little bit of banter here. I mean, not banter, but a little bit of dialogue here, conversation. But how do you feel as a bookseller, as a POC, as a Black bookseller, be seeing this where books are being banned and where our stories are often said, hey, they're too controversial, maybe we shouldn't tell them. How do you feel about that, and how does that kind of play in line with your mission as a bookseller, Jesus?
Well, let me add to earlier my story and my character and whatnot. So I had a teacher in high school. We were in class and we were joking around, high school students, not paying attention and whatnot. And it was an African American teacher, and he was saying to settle down, and that we have to learn, what he's teaching. And I believe he said he wasn't from Texas or San Antonio in particular. And he was like, your city is so rich in history and y'all don't even know the half of it. I'm trying to teach y'all something. You look at your street names, Culebra, Wurzbach, things like that, German names and, for streets and whatnot. And he's like, y'all really need to learn y'all's history. So that was another thing that always stuck with me is, us as, minorities or people of color, not knowing our history, because a lot of it was erased, taken away. We weren't allowed to learn it. So that was another critical point for me to do what I'm doing, is so that we can learn our history, because our, like you said, Afro-Latinidad, African American, Latinos, our history didn't start, with slavery. It was way beyond that, so it just, I just feel it's very important for us to get connected with our roots and know our history. So when I see all this book banning and whatnot, it infuriates me, because it's just another form of them taking away, our education or our knowledge of our past.
I love what you just said right now. It definitely takes away from our self-determination and our self-education when we can't read the books that are written by us. And I love what you just said right now, that African American and Black history didn't start when slavery started. No, it started way before that. And it also is not just slavery. Oftentimes our peoples, Black and brown people, we're often defined by our struggle. The movies that we see are always, us struggling through something and fighting through something. There's a lot of joy, a lot of victory, a lot of celebration in our culturas, in our histories, but it's often not shown. Why? Because it's suppressed. We're like you said, Jesus, a lot of times we're taught that, no, y'all, there's, it's always pain and suffering, and y'all don't have a lot of victories and this and that. Hell no, we do. And that's why it's so important for us to really talk about that. And I know David and Dara were nodding and snapping their fingers when you were talking. Go ahead, jump in, tell us.
Yeah, no, we absolutely agree. And when you said that, our history not starting with slavery. When David and I wanted to set out on this quest, there are so many books that we owned, had access to, that were not just general knowledge, that people didn't. They weren't selling them at Barnes and Noble. They weren't selling them at other independent, bookstores. And we saw a void missing. And so a lot of people, it was really interesting. We went to a conference and we talked about how majority of the books we sell are nonfiction. We have a lot of nonfiction, which is very rare for an independent bookstore. Most people, fiction is what people feel runs the market. But we feel that for BIPOC, for Black folks, Indigenous people of color, Latinos, we want to know our history. It's important. It's a part of us that is missing. The ugly, the beautiful, all of it. And so for us, that was really important. So when we see the censorship and just everything, Texas scene right now, all the things that they're trying to do, it's hard, but it's also, it puts a battery in our back as renegades because we know we're doing something good, because they're trying to stop us from giving out the knowledge. So we must be on the right track because we are annoying people. We are making people nervous. And we live for that every day. When the folks are uncomfortable, that means we're on the right path. That's right. And so we just go keep running it in their backs. We go keep running it up the flagpole every time. And so, to hear other booksellers, to know that it's happening in other places and we have comrades in it, it's encouraging because it's like, we got to get out here and get our people this knowledge. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, I love that. And especially because Tony, his moniker, his nickname, and really his character is El Libro Traficante, the book trafficker.
I love that.
And that stems, and look, folks, to everybody in the audience right now, this is not hyperbole. They back in Arizona earlier in the 2000s, in 2010, they actually passed laws banning Mexican American history. And they said, no, you cannot teach these courses. And what did Tony and the Libro Traficantes do? They literally took a caravan of books and drove it and smuggled these books into Arizona. Now, Tony and the team, and they didn't just do that, but they also worked with legislators and they proved the case. And eventually that law got overturned. So this is not just something that we're making up or it's a fantasy or somebody could say, oh, that'll never happen. It's happened. And in fact, it's happening now. We just found out that one of our comrades, the Texas Poet Laureate for 2022, Lupe Mendez, exactly, Lips Mendez, his book, Why I Am Like Tequila, was banned along with other Black and brown authors and BIPOC authors and LGBTQ authors, was recently banned at several schools in North Texas. And so this is happening right in front of our eyes. And as both of y'all have mentioned, whenever they try to suppress our history, it's because we're on the right track. It's because they don't want us to know our history. There in Houston, can you give us some examples there where maybe you felt that void wasn't being met, and why did you pick the Third Ward? Because that right there, it's outside of TSU campus, and there's U of H is right there, TSU, Yates High School is right there. Why the Third Ward? Why was that the location y'all picked?
Man, to be quite honest, the location picked us straight up. Like I said earlier, we, talked about Northside. We talked about Acres Homes. We talked about Independence Heights, Mo City, Pearland. But when, the homie pulled up on us and was like, yo, like, I got this opportunity, I got this space for you, it was perfect. And now when we tell people where we at, they're like, man, that's a dope location. I always used to pass by there, going to school, going to college, and we're right there in the epicenter. We're right there, like literally blocks away from the main drag in Third Ward on Scott Street. So we're grateful. We are definitely, we don't take it for granted, and we don't, take it for slight. So
a lot of people told us when we told them where we were opening up to be right there on the campus of Texas Southern, to have U of H so close, and even Yates High School. A lot of people remember there used to be, shout out to the bookstores that came before us, who laid the groundwork. There was Amistad, was a bookstore for a long time, and everybody who went to TSU back in the day, they talk about how, oh, there was Amistad Bookstore. We used to go there and we used to hang out and we got all these books and so many things like that. And so to be able to bring that culture back to Texas Southern was really an honor for us, for the kids and the students, to really have an opportunity to have a bookstore that they could access that was, you know, teaching, that was an addition to what they were learning. So when it all came together, the location did pick us, but it was definitely divine, we will say. And it was, for us, it was something we were like, let's carry on the legacy, because Black bookstores, BIPOC bookstores next to universities is a strong tradition, and we're excited to be a part of that.
That is beautiful. I actually went to U of H, and I remember Amistad, and it was something else, you know, that people hold these nostalgic and great memories of bookstores there in the community. And you're absolutely right. I love the way y'all framed it right now. Yes, the location picked us, but what better location than the Third Ward that's experiencing so much change, that things are going on. It's, you know, there's a rebirth of the Third Ward, and it feels like y'all are a part of that. You know, it's fantastic. And you have institutions there in the Third Ward that have been there for years, you know, and I feel, I'm just so happy. Look, Cream Burger is one of my favorite joints for Burger Point. You know, look, I'm down. Look, I was in Detroit, okay? I know all about that word.
Cream Burger is the real institution.
You already know. You already know. Yeah. That's me just flaunting my third word credentials, okay? I'm just like letting you know.
You certified.
I'm certified.
Yes, you passed the test.
And speaking of being certified, Jesus, we did meet you there on the west side. Now you are going right now from a kind of pop-up bookstores, but you also want to be a mobile retailer. I know we discussed that a little bit, Jesus. Tell us a little bit about that, and really maybe how people can even help you with that.
So where do I start? So yeah, you know, doing all these pop-ups and whatnot, as you know, David and Dara mentioned, you know, people are always like, oh, where's your bookstore? Do you have a bookstore and whatnot? And I was thinking about, you know, a brick and mortar for a while. But I really do love doing these pop-ups. I love getting out, you know, to the community and whatnot. So I figured what better way to do that than to, you know, maybe get like a little box truck or something, you know, a little FedEx truck, and, you know, just roll like that, you know, I mean, you know, post up, you know, just meet the people where they're at, you know, make it more accessible. It goes right in line with, you know, like I said, the whole donation thing for books. It makes it more accessible for people. So I'm currently working on a GoFundMe for that, for the truck. I will be launching that probably about Juneteenth ish, you know, do a show and, you know, go live with that. But you know, feel free to support me, you know, Cash App, you know, PayPal, whatever. Hey, hit me up on Instagram. Hey, you know, we want to donate. I'm all for it, because I'm all for y'all. You know, I want to be able to, like I said, be more accessible to the community. So yeah.
No, that's great. That's great, Jesus. And look,
in the future.
No, that'd be great, because you know, they say el que no habla, Dios no lo escucha. The person that doesn't speak, God doesn't listen. And so, you know, you got to speak up for that, man. And we're definitely going to do that. And if you're listening to the show right now, or if you're on the podcast, we are going to have several links, both for Class Bookstore and for King Abel's, because we are trying to make this happen. And you heard it here first, y'all, okay? We started the campaign for King Abel Mobile Literacy Program on Juneteenth, all right? That's where it's going to start right there, all right? And speaking of Juneteenth, I know Class Bookstore got some big plans for that, to make sure that literacy is part of the celebration for Juneteenth. David, Dara, what are y'all going to do for Juneteenth that's going to be, you know, that's going to combine literacy and let folks know, like, hey, Juneteenth has all this history, but there's also a lot more going on. And you know what? Here are the books that you can read about it.
Man, that's a great question. So we will be having a celebration at our brick and mortar shop, 3803 Sampson Street, right there on the corner of Sampson and Cleburne. We will be partnering with one of our favorite nonprofit organizations, Restoring Justice. They are a pro bono law. They basically are a collection of attorneys that come together and assist people with receiving justice. And they've been doing it, and they've been holding it down for the Crown. And so we're going to partner with them. And also Third Ward, one of the beautiful edifices, churches, Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, is also partnering with us in this celebration. And so we're going to bring out poets. We're going to bring out spoken word artists. We're going to bring out children music performers. And of course, there's going to be story time. But we want people to understand and know that Juneteenth is here. It's a federal holiday now. It is finally recognized throughout this nation. And we want people to know that we're here. And it's a beautiful holiday, and we need to recognize and celebrate.
And I love the fact that you're really focusing on celebration, right? We know what Juneteenth is about, but let's make it a party. Let's make it una pachanga for everybody. Yeah. Everybody, let's come out. Let's celebrate. Because, like you said, this is it's a federally recognized holiday, and it's a holiday that deserves to be recognized for folks, for people, there's not that many days for us, right? We're over here getting, so when we have these opportunities to celebrate, we definitely should celebrate. I'm really happy as well that, we are highlighting Juneteenth because of that. A lot of people maybe don't know what Juneteenth is. It's a relatively new holiday, federal holiday. It's not a new holiday, but a lot of people still are, a little bit maybe confused or don't know, and I'll leave this to both of y'all to maybe help somebody that's listening in right now. What is Juneteenth?
You want to take it? Where you want to go?
Y'all go ahead.
Okay. I was like, we're getting started. So Juneteenth is a holiday. David and I, we both were born and raised in Texas, so we've celebrated it all our life. I didn't realize it. There were people who didn't celebrate it. I didn't know it wasn't a thing everywhere. But basically, after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, slaves were free in America by the Emancipation Proclamation, and they should have been able to leave and do their thing. But slaves in Texas were not made aware of that proclamation for 2 years. For 2 years, they were still in bondage. Enslaved Africans were still in bondage for 2 more years. And they did not receive their freedom until June 19th, when the Union soldiers rode down to Galveston and read that decree. And on June 19th, and it became a celebration, and the people turned up. And because of that, and there are many traditions that go with it. You eat a lot of all things red food, red velvet cakes, hibiscus tea, a lot of traditions that come with it. But it's just a time to rejoice, because honestly, when one of us is free, we all free. Right. So, we ain't free till everybody free. And so we really, it is a celebration for everybody. We should all be excited. The same way we'd be out there barbecuing for 4th of July. Hello. Mm-hmm. We need to be barbecuing for Juneteenth. Hello. So get your day from your people and turn up. So
I love that you said that right now, because and the reason I love that you said that, because the reason I asked you to tell us about Juneteenth was because I didn't even know about Juneteenth till I moved to Houston when I went to U of H. And again, to your point and to Jesus' point, we weren't taught that history. And I'm here in San Antonio, and I didn't know anything about Juneteenth. And I went to U of H, and that's when I finally learned about Juneteenth and the importance of the holiday and what it really meant. And it was really strange, like why do I not know this really important day in U.S. history? Why is this information withheld? And I think, again, going to the point that, it's just not part of a curriculum. And because that's why Tony makes it such a big emphasis that we do need ethnic studies in our high schools, not just as a choice or as an elective, but actually as a part of a mandatory course for social studies. And we're not just talking about Mexican American history, we're talking about African American history, we're talking about Asian American history, indigenous history.
Yes.
And let students choose, hey, which history do you want to learn about? It may not even be the one that, quote unquote, it's your history or whatnot, but it's all of our histories. And I love that you just said that there, because it's so important that we learn from that. And David, go ahead.
No, I just was gonna piggyback off what you just said. The fact that Juneteenth, like you coming from San Antonio, didn't know that, and you came to Houston. But the irony of you all having the largest MLK parades and celebrations in the entire country. Why is it that you wouldn't have that extra piece added on? Oh, by the way, this man is a Black person, and he descended from these people who were. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The irony, the glaring irony of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And very proud that we do have the largest MLK rally, but we still got work to do in the schools, obviously. And I wanted to make one final point with Jesus regarding that when it comes to Afro-Latinidad and how that gets kind of, pushed aside sometimes. When it comes to Mexicanidad, when it comes to Latinos, Mexican folk, Mexican American folks like myself, we don't recognize that third leg of the cultura that's there, which is, Black folks, so much of Mexico, so much of this, this melting pot, if you will. And I don't really like using that term, but in Mexico, it's probably like one of the best terms to use, really, because Afro-Latinidad is such a real thing, but it's not really highlighted over here. And Jesus, I know that we talked about that a little bit, and your mission is to really drive home that point and really kind of expose more people to that, idea that, hey, and this is going to sound crazy maybe to other folks, but there's folks out there that don't know that there's actually Black folk that speak Spanish, that there's Black folk that are Afro-Latinos, and they don't understand that. Tell us a little bit more about that being part of your mission.
So, I mean, it's funny, but not really to me, because I still get that a lot. Like I said, I'm Puerto Rican Mexican, and I'll go to a restaurant, it's here in San Antonio, a Mexican restaurant, go through a drive-through, order in Spanish and pull up to the window, and all of a sudden they're talking English, they're speaking English to me. And it's like I just ordered in Spanish, but yeah, Afro-Latinos are big, and probably about maybe the past 5-10 years or so, Afro-Latinos have been being highlighted a bit more, still not to where I guess it should be, because people are still like, what? Vicente Guerrero, I believe in Mexico, was Afro-Mexican president for like a small time there, but he was president of Mexico. He was Afro-Mexican. There's a large population in Mexico that settled in Mexico, and they're living in Mexico, speaking Spanish, the culture and everything, dark as can be, curly hair and everything, but people still don't recognize that. And it's not only in Mexico, it's everywhere. People, just like here in the States, the lighter complexion gets the most attention, in the Caribbeans and everywhere, you see the darker people hardly ever get, any mention of anything, even though they are part of that culture. They were born and raised there, we're here, don't be surprised. we do exist.
David?
The book that I always like to,
No.
the book that I always like to, give my people, especially who are seeking to create connection between Black and Brown, is They Came Before Columbus.
Yes, I have that book. I have that book.
Great book.
And that was the book that started me on my self-knowledge journey, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic, and I think that just goes to show that we, you know, as Black and Brown people, as we form our solidarity, that we understand, you know, like, hey, you can't just shake hands and this. No, we got to learn. We really got to go out
Mhm.
there and read the histories and share and really do that cross cultural exchange that, you know, that we've been doing for quite a while, you know, but it needs to continue happening. And I want to end the note on just what you said, Jesus, right now. We here. I love that. I tell people that all the time. We here, whether you like us or not, get used to it. We're going to be opening up our own bookstores, just like David and Dara are doing. We're going to have our own mobile literacy campaign, just like Jesus is doing right there. All right, we're going to have our own radio shows, okay? We're going to bring out our own people and get them out there. And we are here, and we're going to continue doing these things. And even we're going to continue doing things even if they ban us, even if they tell us we can't, even if they say, hey, you shouldn't. Hey, you don't have the resources. Hey, you know, this and that. We're not going to let that stop us. So I really appreciate both of y'all for coming on to the show. Before we sign off, though, I want to give both of you an opportunity to highlight your social media, the website, or anything that, you know, you want to give our listeners information to right now so they can reach out to you. And maybe, again, the biggest campaign that you got going on. I'll go ahead and start with Jesus.
Right now, I am on Instagram. You can find me on Instagram at kingables.satx. I am on Facebook as well, but I'm not as active on there. So your best shot is on Instagram. Email me at kingables.satx@gmail. And yeah, like I said, look for the GoFundMe for my mobile vehicle, so we can get these books distributed and into the hands of people, you know, that want to learn and, you know, have that fire to read.
That's what's up. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Jesus. David, what would you like to share with the audience before we go ahead and start signing off?
So definitely you can check us out online, www.classbookstore.com. You can visit us on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays from 11 to 8, Sundays from 1 to 6. 3803 Sampson is the address. Our social media is all Class Bookstore. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel, Class Bookstore. And what's our biggest campaign we got? Juneteenth celebration.
Yeah. And Father's Day.
Yes.
Juneteenth and Father's Day. Shout out to the dads.
Yes.
So Juneteenth and Father's Day, get at us. And yeah, never forget.
I'm gonna have to make a road trip.
Buy books, not cocaine.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it. I love it.
I know. We have to collaborate. Jesus, you got to come down here. We got to figure it out. We got to make that connection.
Oh, most definitely. I'm most definitely gonna have to go out there and check y'all out. I would love to. One thing real quick. Have y'all been to Sankofa Books up in Washington?
Yes.
I love that bookstore.
Yes. Sankofa, they were one of our visits before we started. They were one of the stores we visited. Sankofa, great, loved it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And and I hate the word synergy, but I'm gonna use it here. So please forgive me. But the synergy that's going on right here, I love it. It's like we're in a virtual bookstore, right? And David and Dara just watching, and then here goes Jesus, and they're like, "Hey, you're a bookseller. I'm a bookseller. Let's hook up. All right, let's do it." You know. But I love creating these connections, and it's so important that we show solidarity amongst all of us, because we got. So many times we have to battle this system, this structure that's not really built for us, but we're gonna make it happen. And like Jesus said, we here, and we're gonna make that happen. And I appreciate both of y'all so much for joining us on the show today. I'm gonna go ahead and any final parting words that y'all like to share before we go ahead and sign off.
Final parting words: hey, read books, read more books. The knowledge is in the books. If you feel that you are not a reader, check out King Gables, check out Class Bookstore. Let us change your mind. We just feel that you have not found the book for you yet, but the knowledge is in the book. So please, please, please read to your kids. Reading is important. and it's valuable, and we cannot lose it.
Exactly.
Oh, I think that's the best note to end off on. I think that's Jesus, you got one last thought?
I just want to thank you for making this possible. I really appreciate this. This was amazing. I love it. Thank you, both of y'all, all of y'all three.
No problem. And I appreciate y'all for the work that y'all are doing in the community. Y'all are literally book traffickers. Y'all are libro traficantes, getting the histories out there, making sure that people have a choice from where to buy their books, but also what they read, where they get those books from, and making sure that our people, nuestra gente, get the histories that they're supposed to get. My name is Rodrigo Bravo. I am the guest host and filling in for Tony Díaz, El Libro Traficante. This has been Nuestra Palabra. We've been streaming on all of our live platforms right now. Please, if you find it in your heart, feel free to go to kpft.org, make a small donation in the name of Nuestra Palabra. Latino writers have their say, so we can go ahead and continue this freedom of expression, this experiment in freedom of speech going. I want to thank everybody that's been watching. I want to thank our guests as well for coming along. Please follow us on our social media. We will be highlighting them on all of our platforms and really gearing up for the Juneteenth celebration that they're going to have. Looks like it's going to be a big party. I'm definitely going to be down there in Houston for this. King Abel is going to come with me too. We're going to do a little road trip over there. Let's go. All right, that's it. It's all ready. And we're going to meet up with Class Bookstore, and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to distribute these books because we're selling books, not cocaine, not drugs, nothing like that. We're doing it big.
Yes.
Love everybody. Everybody have a great day. This is Rodrigo Bravo Jr. for Nuestra Palabra. See you soon.